I just wanted to share my thoughts on recent events as I sit here and reflect on what's been happening lately in our country, coupled with today's date, September 11th. I'm just struck by the sad and ironic similarities to that terrible day in our nation's history, because 9/11, for a lot of Americans that are old enough to remember it, it represents a day that they're never going to forget, because it was a day that evil struck out against innocent people. Why? Because of ideological hate. And I remember many people at that time and since just grappling with how a group of people could be so brainwashed as to do something like flying planes into buildings and killing thousands of people. And the question was always, why? But the often all too quick response to that was, well, they just hate our freedoms. However, that may be true partly, but I think it belies a misunderstanding of a lot of complex issues. At core, they saw America, and this is where we need to think about, they saw America as a threat that needed to be eliminated. Again, not just because of freedom, but because of a host of historical and cultural events, issues, and misunderstandings that still in no way excuse the evil act that they committed. But the idea that many people think that they must eliminate those who look different than them, disagree with them, or seem like a threat, that is heartbreaking. And there's the sad and unfortunate similarity to 9/11 that we are seeing happening on the news day after day, month after month, and year after year. People are being killed in communities across America because of ideological difference, race difference, and misunderstandings. We've got a pretty self-focused, fragile, and hyper-defensive culture here in America. And that's resulted in division, the growth of anonymity, canceling each other. And that makes it feel impossible to find any middle ground, doesn't it? Like, think about it. Our influencers, our politicians, our teachers, and yes, even us individually, we've bought into this idea that it's okay to talk about people in a way that completely dehumanizes them, completely devalues them. Because if we see them as some kind of existential threat to us, then they must be canceled. Or worse, like we're seeing, they need to be destroyed. And I believe this has created the cultural waters that we're now swimming in. And the underlying problem of being so self-focused affects all of us. It doesn't matter, left, right, Christian, non-Christian, atheist, person of faith, doesn't matter. We're all at danger of being sucked into this idea that what matters most is me and my happiness. And since that idea, that philosophy is not making us happy, but making us more anxious and depressed, many of us have essentially become dystopian. And the approach to the future is bleak at best. And also because of our natural tendency to be hyper self-focused, morality's been warped, our sense of justice has been corrupted, because we're not starting with a sense of service to others first, right? There's no community, and we've lost our way with faith, certainly, and it is measurably hurting us. And the real world problem is that when we think about handing out our own sense of justice, quote unquote, we start with our pain and personal perspective, not with love of God and certainly not love of others. And as a result, our truth is rooted in just what we feel, not an objective standard. And as we've sadly seen too often, there's no limit to the evil that can be done when we forget love of God and especially love of others. And when we hand out our sense of justice in a way that skips love of God and love of others and a genuine pursuit of what's actually true, man, we just jump right to acting justly. And I hope that we'll learn from what we saw on 9/11 and across America for many years now. I hope that we'll learn that misguided justice, just driven by hate and revenge, is horrific, and it's devoid of either the truth or justice or love. Because that kind of justice is little more than a revengeful outpouring of our anger, our angst, our depression, our lack of hope, and it's going to lead us nowhere good as a nation. So what do? I repeat, we must take personal accountability for how we talk about issues that divide us. Those of us that follow Jesus must really follow him. We need to take him seriously when he says that our sense of justice must be found at the intersection of our love of God and other people. And that sense of justice has to be grounded in the truth. That means that we all, people of faith or not, must pay attention to how we talk about those we see as a threat. You know, think about it personally. What misunderstandings do you have? Are you dehumanizing people by how you talk about them? Have you ever actually engaged in dialogue with them? True, some people are unreasonable and they don't want to listen. And they just want to lash out violently, as unfortunately we've seen in recent school shootings, the Charlotte train stabbing, right? The assassination of Charlie Kirk. And even if you look a little bit further back, the attempted assassination of our own president. Now, I know for some, even hearing those names and events is going to bring up this swell of emotions that are very strong. But that's exactly why we need to talk about this stuff. Because if we can't have this conversation now, when will we? All these events that have been happening recently are sad examples of how unstable people can be drawn into destructive and even evil thinking. And in every instance, they've bought into the same thinking as the terrorists of 9/11. They believe in some form or fashion that the only way forward is to destroy innocent life. And sadly, all these events reveal how violence has become an acceptable solution to our disagreements. And I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk in particular is just especially instructive for us today. And here's why. He was a lightning rod of a personality who drew a lot of emotional response for and against. And whether you agree or disagree with his politics, there's something to be learned here. His death should reveal something important to all of us about our current cultural moment. And here it is. More people, like I've said, believe it's okay to destroy people we disagree with or deem as having dangerous ideas. Social media, unfortunately, wasted no time in celebrating his death. Think about that. Think about what that says about where we are. That should make us think more objectively about our sense of justice and morality and how we talk to and about our enemies. Jesus commanded us to love our enemies. And that doesn't mean we all have to agree, but it should change how we do it. And if we can't stop the pendulum swing happening right now in America, next time it'll just be people on the left, or it's going to be race tensions, or pick something else. Please, for the sake of our country and future generations, don't slide into the same misguided and evil thinking that the terrorists of 9/11 had when they attacked our country. Let's be better than that. Let's see people as people, even if they're our enemies. Because whether or not you follow Jesus, his principle of loving our enemies is something that we desperately need in our culture right now. We can't control every act of violence in the world, can we? But what can we control? Our own words, our own attitudes, and how we treat those we disagree with. And that's where change has always begun. Just imagine an America where we can disagree strongly, but no one fears for their life because of it. That's a pretty worthy goal, don't you think? Because, I mean, think about it. For thousands of years of human history, public discourse has been incredibly important, right? The exchange of ideas has been foundational to our success as a people because it shapes us, it grows us, and ultimately it can make us better. And I believe we can be better than our current moment. So here's your challenge for the week ahead. Why don't you reach out to someone that you disagree with? And this is kind of awkward, but just like straight up tell them you want to be a part of doing things differently and that you just want to hear their perspective and ask if they'll be willing to hear yours. Like, it's got to start somewhere. Or you could just watch what you say when you're talking about people that you disagree with. Are you dehumanizing them? The vitriol has got to stop with us individually. And lastly, just be careful about what you post. Are you feeding into the hate and the push toward the brink, or are you speaking against it? At the end of the day, this week, let's do better for future generations. Let's replace canceling with listening. Let's replace the dehumanizing with dignity. I believe we can do this together, but it takes every single one of us taking personal responsibility for how we are acting. Thanks for listening.